Hi, I'm Dan, and welcome to Polar Currency and video number 79, 10 small size U.S. banknotes you must have in your collection, at least according to me. It seems that over the past decade or so, U.S. small size banknotes have kind of been dismissed by many collectors. I certainly understand this, as large size notes have the beautiful artwork, detailed engraving, and a wide variety of designs. I certainly get it. But small size notes have circulated for almost a century, 40 years longer than large size, and I don't think they get the attention or respect that they deserve. It's just not collectors either. Cue David Bowers and David M. Sundman's book, 100 Greatest American Currency Notes, only have 6 small size notes ranked.
Quick monologue sidebar. Does anyone else question the top 100 rankings? I don't understand why banknotes are even ranked when they can't even be collected, even if you have the money. Why rank a note that's only in a museum or only held by the U.S. Treasury Department, or no banknote has ever been owned by a collector in the first place? And how many collectors do you know that want an Emperor Norton I note, or even know what it is? End of sidebar.
With that said, here are the 10 small size U.S. banknotes that I believe should be in everybody's collection. And all but one of these have multiple denominations, and you could easily substitute a different denomination than what I'm recommending. For me, these small size notes are important banknotes in U.S. history, and they each have their own story. My first recommendation is what I'm calling a small size specialty note, one cool and unique note that you normally wouldn't collect.
Number 10. Error notes are a great example, and they're affordable. 2 suggestions for errors. Get one that's been graded with the error designated on the holder. Don't purchase something that could be doctored up from some jackass seller on eBay. Number 2, and this comes from our old friend Dennis Huff. If you're gonna get an error note, get one with sizzle. Meaning you want the error to really pop. Fancy serial numbers can be an option. You can drink some of Dustin Whitty's Kool-Aid and pick up a really cool fancy banknote. Dustin was kind enough to give me this $20 series 1999 FRN radar binary rotator note. I have to admit, it is really cool, and once again, thank you, Dustin. Or you could go down the James Bond fancy serial number hole like Dean from Massapequa Numismatics. He loves his 0s and 7s. Maybe a little too much, but who am I to judge based on what I'm going to show you next? My individual choice for a specialty note are shipwreck notes, and I have 2 of them. I have a small collection of ocean liner notes, and I just had to get the 2 shipwreck notes. They were recovered from the SS Andrea Doria that sank in 1956. The first one is what you've been seeing, encased in acrylic and graded by PCGS Currency. It comes with a box and everything. For more information on this, check out my video Shipwreck Banknotes. The second note was recently sold by Vaultbox and graded by PMG. You can see that both have an alpha grading system. I don't recommend banknote collecting gambling. For more on that, check out my scam or scheme video short. Anyways, Vaultbox initially had these priced at $199 each, and they did sell out. I was able to pick up mine for $150 on eBay. Did I pay too much for a couple $1 Series 1935E silver certificates? Probably, but I'd do it again. Number 9. The Series 1929 Federal Reserve Banknote, or FRBN, and no, it's not a national, makes the list because of the history and the fact that they're kind of treated like a red-headed stepchild by collectors. They have a great story. Even though dated 1929, small-size FRBNs were actually printed and released with the brown seal and serial numbers in 1933. They were issued to help a currency shortage brought on by the Depression, so they're considered an emergency currency. Why am I recommending the 100? Well, it's kind of like a go big or go home thing. If you're going to have one small-size FRBN, make it 100. They're affordable, and depending on the serial number and condition, they can sell less than $300 in AU 50 grades, but you can easily find the lower denominations for half that. Small-size FRBNs were printed on existing national banknote stock sheets, so that's where the confusion with the national banknote thing comes from. But there were a few problems for the Bureau of Engraving and Printing, the BEP. The first issue was that the national banknote plates used the signatures of the cashier and the president. Well, FRBNs are issued by the 12 Federal Reserve banks, and they don't have a president. They have a governor. The second is the financial obligation and backing is different between nationals and FRBNs. Both problems were solved in a very quick and dirty fashion. A logo type overprint of fourth printing was used to put a black bar over president, and governor was just added to the left, and the text was added to the top to change the financial obligation. This final printing was sloppy, and many times, most notably with the governor, the alignment misses the mark. There's even more history that relates to World War II. Watch my video, Small Size 1929 FRBNs, for the complete story.
Number 8.
The $50 Series 1928 Federal Reserve Note, FRN, ranks because of its relatively short lifespan. The first FRNs were issued using a numeric Federal Reserve Bank seal. The center of the seal used a number that correlated to a letter in the alphabet. 1 equals A, 2 equals B, 3 equals C, I think you get it. That was changed in late 1929 to the seal using a letter. Why? The answer to that, according to an article by Jamie Yates, who you're going to hear from again later, from the Society of Paper Money Collectors May-June 2012 journal, the reason the BEP changed because they were, quote, fearful the public would confuse them for the denomination, the Treasury changed to letters on all new plates starting that late September, end quote, and that's 1929. Mistaking the Treasury seal and the denomination? I mean, the four corners and a different portrait on each denomination wasn't enough to tell the difference? This is where I have to point out, if you have average intelligence, half the people are stupider than you. But I digress. The number and denomination confusion thing, I don't get it, it doesn't make sense, but it's what happened. One more thing. All the series of 1928 FRNs carry the financial obligation redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve bank. This does not mean it's a gold certificate. It means you could walk up to the U.S. Treasury Department in Washington, D.C., or one of the 12 Federal Reserve banks and exchange your 1928 FRN for gold. This was removed for the Series 1934 FRNs because of FDR's Executive Order 6102. More on that later. Speaking of gold, today's FRNs are a fiat currency backed by only the faith of the people and the government and congressional acts declaring such currency legal tender. But the Series 1914 and all Series 1928 FRNs were actually backed by 40% gold until 1934. After that, they became a full-on fiat currency. I selected the 50 Series 1928 FRN for a few reasons. One is I just like the look of them. Maybe it's because you just don't see them that often, which leads to reason number 2. Historically, the 50 always has had low print runs compared to the lower denominations, not counting the 2. I get that the 50 is a higher denomination and requires less notes, but for collectors that means they're more scarce. Depending on the Federal Reserve Bank and, of course, condition, you can still find mid-grade 1928 50s for $300 to $500. The final reason is the print quality. The printing is so much bolder, and the 1928 inks are darker, especially compared to the last small-head series of 1993.
Number 7.
Number 7 is the $100 Series 1966 Legal Tender Note or United States Note, and it stands alone as a single note series that was only printed and, well, kind of issued by the U.S. Treasury Department to specifically circumvent the antiquated Bland-Allison Act of February 28, 1878. I know I've talked about this before, but you remember the act mandated that exactly $322,539,016 for all denominations of legal tender notes had to remain in circulation. Well, fast forward to 1965 and legal tenders accounted for less than 1% of all circulating paper money, and the Treasury Department was just done with the nuisance of having to issue such a minor currency. The answer? Discontinue the printing of all 1963 legal tender notes and slowly withdraw them from circulation beginning in 1966. But remember that pesky act of February 28, 1878, stating that legal tenders had to circulate. Well, the Treasury found a clever loophole and decided the easiest way to meet the legal requirement was to print and issue $1.4 million $100 legal tender notes and circulate them right into the Treasury's vault and call it good. They would sit there and no more legal tenders would need to be made. Problem solved. The Treasury Department was finally out of the business of issuing currency that was now left only to the Federal Reserve Bank system. It's a great story, and the Act of February 28, 1878, yeah, that was finally removed as part of the Rigel Act in 1994. The note is just stunning, and it's fascinating to see red serial numbers and a Treasury seal on a modern $100 bill. There were two issues, 1966 and 1966A, and both sell for about the same price. And that price, by the way, is way undervalued considering that a good portion of the notes printed were destroyed. The Series 1966 was also the first banknote issued with the newly designed Treasury seal that used English instead of Latin. The 1966A has the distinction of being the very last legal tender note printed and issued in 1971 after 109 years. Technically speaking, legal tenders were in circulation for 132 years, the 1994 thing, making it the longest U.S. issued banknote type. It won't be until 2047 when Federal Reserve notes take over that spot. Number 6. The $10 Series 1929 National Banknote places number 6 for a number of reasons. First off is collectability. National banknotes were issued from 1863 to 1929 and pretty much stand apart from all other currency types. Hell, you might even call the 1929 a fourth charter national banknote. The best reason to have one of these notes is that you can get one from your hometown, county, state, and historic place, or maybe even with your name on it. I also selected the small size $10 Series 1929 National because of the affordability. The 5s tend to be more expensive in better conditions as they circulated more given the lower denomination. 20s aren't that much more, but the 50s and 100s jump quite a bit in price just like the 1928s. Small size Nationals were the first banknote to use the brown ink for the Treasury seal and serial numbers. They were issued in two types, Type 1 from 1929 to 1933 and Type 2 from 1933 to 1935. The only visual change to the Type 2 was the addition of a second charter number printed alongside the serial number that would help sorting the banknotes upon redemption. Type 2s are considerably more rare, accounting for only 25% of all surviving small-size 1929 national banknotes. And if you're thinking of completing a Type 2 set, you may want to check your state. Only 37 banks out of approximately 4,600 operating national banks in 1933 issued $100 Type 2 notes, and in less than 20 states. According to Heritage Auctions, this national is believed to be the highest graded 100 Type 2 known. Check out my video, A Trip to the Money Museum, for more information to find out why these nationals were discontinued. Number 5. The $5 Series 1934 silver certificate ranks for two reasons. One, the big blue 5 denomination and the big blue Treasury seal are just so cool, and two, they're very affordable and high grades. Bazillions were printed and issued with many varieties to collect. Silver certificates were the fourth currency type actually made for circulation. First authorized in 1878, they have a long and diverse history. The Series 1934 was the second small-sized variety and lasted until being replaced by the Series 1953, the last $5 silver certificate to ever be issued. Having at least one 1934 silver certificate is worthy of any collection because for many years it was the workhorse for circulating currency that was trusted, being backed by hard specie. Why the 5? Again, because it's affordable and available. You can see this with a snapshot of graded notes. PMG has graded over 11,000 Series 1934 $5 silver certificates and only 3,000 ones, so they're available. And finally, again, just seeing that bright blue ink with the black border against the white paper just makes for a striking banknote. Number 4. For super cool factor alone, the $20 Series 1928 gold certificate ranks high for me. I mean, just look at the gold treasury seal and the serial numbers, and the note just stands alone. Why recommend the 20? For me, it's better looking than the 10, and the price isn't that much more. Again, the 50s and the 100s take a major price hike because of the survival rates are far less. First authorized in 1863, gold certificates were issued by the United States Treasury as the third type of circulating paper currency from 1865 to 1933. In July of 1929, dated Series 1928, the new small-size paper currency was released and all the designs followed the same basic format and reverses. Federal Reserve notes, United States notes, silver certificates, and gold certificates were now all uniform with only the serial numbers and treasury seals changing color. And sadly, green replaced the goldfish-colored ink backs for the gold certificates. A fun fact is that there was a Series 1934 gold certificate that were issued only to facilitate internal government transactions and are illegal to possess by the public, and that's still true to this day. BEP use of color sidebar. As a collector, I can understand the decision to make all the currency uniform. But sticking with just the BEP green for the backs? Why? Cost savings and efficiency, maybe? But if that was the case, then why did the BEP continue to make paper currency for the Philippines from the 1920s to the 1940s that had stunning Crayola crayon reverse colors? Why not just keep some aspect from the pre-1928 days of the large-size currency? It just doesn't make sense, but then I'm a paper currency collector that buys coins every once in a while and still make fun of them. End of sidebar. The death of circulating gold certificates came on April 5, 1933, when again President Franklin D. Roosevelt issued Executive Order 6102, removing the dollar from the gold standard and outlawing the ownership of gold in any form. The order did allow for private ownership of less than $100 for various needs, including coin collecting. But of course, gold certificates weren't included. Thanks, coin numismatists, for being selfish. I've seen some estimates that 80% of all small-size gold certificates were destroyed back in the day. For that reason alone, it's worth having in your collection. For more information, check out my video, What Are Gold Certificates? Number 3. The number 3 spot goes to the $1 Series 1935 World War II Emergency Silver Certificate with the Hawaiian overprint and the brown treasury seal and serial numbers. The Hawaiian notes can be considered the first military payment certificates issued to U.S. Armed Forces, who were paid with these until Allied military currency could be issued, but that was a secondary purpose. The main need was for a new civilian currency in Hawaii. With the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the U.S. was fearful, and for that matter susceptible, to a Japanese invasion. If the currency was captured, it could devastate the U.S. economy. So new notes were produced just for Hawaii that could instantly be deemed worthless. Along with the $1 silver certificate, $5, $10, and $20 Federal Reserve notes were issued by the Federal Reserve Bank of San Francisco. The designs were identical to the current notes at the time, with just the blue and green treasury seal and serial numbers printed in brown ink. In addition, the front of the notes were overprinted with Hawaii in black bold type on both ends of each note, and the reverse was overprinted with large skeleton letters, Hawaii. For a much more in-depth look at the Hawaiian notes, check out my video, USA Currency of World War II. Number 2. Ranking high at number 2 is the $10 Series 1934 and 1934A World War II Emergency Issue Silver Certificate. This rate's high for me because of the history and beauty, especially with the 10. Along with the 5, it just stands out with the large blue denomination on the left that the 1 doesn't have, and the yellow, not gold, treasury seal on the right. The blue serial numbers add to the appeal for all 3 notes. These have come to be known as the North African notes and were one of the first types of military payment certificates issued to U.S. service personnel. The first World War II European theater of operations for the U.S. was the North Africa campaign, alongside Great Britain with the goal to push the Nazis out of North Africa. A currency was needed for the armed forces, and in June of 1942, the BEP issued the $1, $5, and $10 silver certificates. In 1943, they were being replaced with Allied military currency in Italy. Like the Hawaiian emergency notes, they were eventually withdrawn and replaced by Allied military currency, and the issue was discontinued in 1944. Again, for more information, check out my video, USA Currency of World War II. Number 1. The $1 Series 1928 legal tender or United States note is my top pick because it carries a lot of history and has a great story. My 5th video, Legal Tender Mysteries, asks a lot of questions, and thanks to Jamie Yates, who wrote 2 articles on the $1 1928 legal tender for the Society of Paper Moneys magazine, helped solve part of the mystery, so thank you for that. He gave me this information after that video came out, so this is kind of an update. The note was quickly issued in 1933, even though dated Series 1928, because of a potential silver certificate shortage at the time. It was the heart of the Depression and cash was being hoarded. Why they were dated Series 1928 and not 1933 is because under the law at the time, they had to be issued under the same Legal Tender Act as the 1928 2s and 5s. If the Treasury Department used 1933 as a date, it would have implied a legal difference between the two. No time for Congress to act because a quick turnaround was needed. So that's why the Series 1928 is printed on the note. Second option, sidebar. Man, there's a lot of sidebars in this video. The Treasury Department could have issued a $1 national banknote. The denomination was authorized by Congress in 1917. Logistically, it would have been a hot mess and nightmare, but it would have made a great collector note seeing a small size $1 national. Nothing wrong with dreaming. There was a shortage for all currency at the time, but that's the story of the small size series 1929 FRBNs. End of sidebar. From a collector's perspective, less than 2 million were printed and roughly 3,000 were released from the U.S. Treasury window in 1933. They then sat in a vault for the next 15 years until 1948 when they were shipped to Puerto Rico. Why Puerto Rico? According to Yates' article, the Treasury was, and I quote, mindful of the eventual bothersome need to segregate redeemed $1 legal tenders from silver certificates, that the Treasury Department send them to Puerto Rico. Having them circulate in Puerto Rico would effectively segregate them from contaminating the silver certificate supply on the mainland. End quote. Well, we can't have any contamination of silver certificates on the mainland. So ship them off to Puerto Rico. Adding to the top spot for this note is the reverse. It's the original funny back and only 2 types use this design. The design really wasn't new and was basically an altered back from the $1 Series 1923 large silver certificate. This note has great history, multiple stories, extremely low print run, and with all that, they're still affordable. And for me, it's just a stunning note and completes the set of 1928 legal tender notes.
Well, that's it for video number 79. 10 small size U.S. banknotes you must have in your collection, according to me. Like I said, I get why we all want to collect large size notes, but hopefully this video has shown that there are many small size banknotes in series that are worth putting together. For the most part, they're easy to find in any grade and cost less than large size notes. If it wasn't for small size currency, I may not still be collecting today. They allowed me to stay in the hobby when we were raising our daughters and didn't have the budget or time. As always, I appreciate your time. Please take the time to subscribe to the channel, hit the thumbs up button, and feel free to leave a comment or a question or a suggestion if you think I missed a note. We'll see you next time, and thanks for checking in.